It's doing it again.
Doing what?
You look gorgeous and I look ugly.
Hey, it's cool how we match. My tripod is a little broken because it's like I tried to fix it with hot glue. Okay, so anyone who might be new, I am Crystal and this is Sean, my husband, and we are professional network marketers because we feel like we've kind of put in our time.
Because we are.
Yeah, because
We don't need to make any excuses.
Yeah.
We are.
We are. We're professionals. So we've been doing our entire marriage. We have been able to be pretty successful, I'd say. Right?
Very successful. What is this? I'm not apologizing for my success.
We kind of want to talk about something that I have been
Go ahead.
Dealing with recently, and I feel like Sean should be the next John Gray because he's so good with advice.
Good for you.
For women, like
for you.
I think all you women need to hear his advice. Okay, so first of all, if any of you think that your friends or followers might be interested in this topic, then we'd love it if you shared it on Facebook or Twitter, and then we will get started. The last few weeks I've kind of been dealing with some emotions. Like you said, women are emotional beings, and Sean has been reading the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. I read it like 15 years ago,
Me
and
too.
I think I should definitely read it again. It's just one of those books that everybody should read, and there's just so much good information in there. We're going to talk about what happens when somebody hurts your feelings or does something that frustrates you or betrays you in a way, like a friend, you know, does something that you kind of feel really hurt. Sean is going to share with you kind of what we talked about over this weekend that actually really helped me get out of my slump that I was in and helped me feel a lot better. People skills is just probably like the #1 skill that we all need to learn. And unfortunately, it's not really taught in public schools, or, you know, it's not really something that is part of our education, but it's like the most important skill, I think. So, Sean, can you share what you said to me this weekend about?
Yeah, well, Crystal is, you know, and I've been dealing with a few people in my life as well that, you know, they're really not worth my energy. They're really not worth any of my time. And yet, you know, people can rub you the wrong way, and people can frustrate you. And that's just life, you know, and it's not necessarily anything you did or didn't do. And sometimes, you know, personalities just clash. And so it's like in our faith, you know, we're taught to love everybody, but that doesn't mean you're going to like everybody. And so not everybody's going to like you either. And I know that's really tough for Crystal. Crystal, you know, one of her greatest desires is that she wants to be liked.
By everybody.
Yeah. And, you know, and she doesn't want to, you know, it's not that she thinks she's perfect either. She knows she has flaws, but she just wants everyone to know that she has their best interests at heart. And, you know, that she really has no ill motive. She wishes no ill will on anyone. And so when people don't reciprocate, when she's trying to be a really good friend to people, and I've seen this over the years, we've been married for 12 years now, and when she's like been a really good friend to somebody and they don't reciprocate, you know, and that's really hard for Crystal. It's really, really hard. For me, if someone doesn't reciprocate for me, then I'm like, you know, they're lost kind of thing. I don't care.
He's good at just moving on.
Yeah, I mean,
like, but why?
if I give love and if I give service and if I give friendship and someone doesn't reciprocate, and this is maybe the way that men are wired, if there's no reciprocation, I just, you know, I look for someone else, you know, to befriend. But women, you know, they have it's the Mother Teresa syndrome, really. It's, you know, you give and give and give and give and give, and you would hope that others would follow suit. And when they don't, it really hurts. So, you know, one of the things that I learned recently, and I reread that book, you know, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and you know, I've also done an extensive amount of personal development over the years, attended a lot of those kinds of courses. And one of the things it talked about that really stood out to me was it talked about how people, you don't know where they're coming from. and how you really can't judge people because they don't see the world the way that you see it, or even see you the way that that you see you, or you would hope that they would see you. And it talked about how, if you would put yourself in someone else's shoes and see things the way that they see them, you really would understand and appreciate their point of view. And you might not think it's wrong. And you might not think that they're skewed or they're flawed. Because, for instance, if you were raised your entire life to be Mormon, like we were, essentially, and you were raised to believe that, certain things about a certain way, and that's all you knew. That's all you were ever brought up to think. How could somebody judge you for not wanting to drink alcohol? You see, and they might say, oh, shame on you. You make me feel bad. By you not drinking, it's making me feel judged. By you not participating in this over here or that over there, you're making me feel condemned. I don't like you for that.
Yeah.
And so yet they can't judge us because they weren't raised in our shoes. Conversely, we can't judge anyone because if you were raised in the Middle East by Muslims, and you were raised to think a certain thing about American people, or you were raised to feel a certain way about dress or what have you, that's all you'd know. Think about that. And so we can't look at someone and say they're wrong, they're bad. And one of the things it talked about, which was really eye-opening, I shared with Crystal, it talked about how this one general, they asked him a question. They asked him to give his opinion of another general who was his enemy. And they said, how do you feel about this person? And he went on to praise that person. And he went on to say that person is highly intellectual. And that person has very good strategies around war, and highly educated person, phenomenal people skills, and just on and just lavished all this praise and upon the enemy. And then the reporter said, gosh, this is very odd, this is your biggest enemy. This is your biggest critic. He has said all kinds of horrible, awful things about you. And, it's just confusing to hear you say all of this good in return. And the guy said, well, you asked me what I thought of him. You didn't ask me what he thought of me. And this was really eye-opening for me because, you've ever heard the quote, what other people think about you is none of your business. You can always take the higher road. Even those people who kind of, secretly, how it is. Those people who resent you. I have them. I have people that judge me. I have people that unfollow me. I have people that anything I post, they misinterpret it. Anything I post, they think I'm just out for personal gain. They think that I have ulterior motives. I've got all these critics out there. We all do. And I know those people. They're not hiding. I know who they are. You get a vibe. You can sense it. You can feel it. Return kindness. Return love. That's what Christ did. Jesus Christ, his entire life, what did he do? He basically, essentially, he loved his enemies, and he taught us all to do the same. And so if you think about things in those terms, why do we need to do that? It's not for them per se. It's for our own personal peace. Have you ever been at a battle with somebody? Have you ever been conflicted with somebody? Have you ever noticed that you're not really hurting them? And it's that when they say, when you spew venom, when you gossip about somebody, when you revile against somebody, when you have this kind of conflict and contention, they say this, they say, having those feelings towards somebody else is no different than drinking poison and expecting it to hurt the other person. That's essentially what you're doing. Those kinds of feelings, that kind of internal anguish and that kind of internal turmoil, that, you kind of have this feeling of you're just not at peace.
Yeah.
And yet what's interesting is it's causing you grief. It's causing you health challenges. It's shutting down your energy, your creativity. Mm-hmm. So, turn it. In fact, read that poem. It's called Anyways. And my grandpa had it hanging in his garage. And my grandpa Ira from Arizona, my mom's dad. And I have that poem as well in my garage. And it basically says that people will do this. And love them anyways. And if you build something, people will come and they will break it down. But build it anyways. And if you do this kind act over here, people will judge you. They'll judge your motives. They'll think you're just in it to be seen of the world. Do good anyways. And it's the most wonderful, beautiful. It's called the Mother Teresa poem. You'd love it.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it really is. But, when we talk about, when you were talking about, how this type of communications, this type of, education around dealing with people, the impact that it has on our lives, these things, how to pay someone a compliment, how to make the other people feel appreciated, how to make the other person, not to condemn people, not to criticize people, and I've done it too. But it's interesting, when we criticize someone, like your neighbor does something you don't like, and your knee-jerk reaction is to criticize, judge, condemn. And yet what's interesting is, when you do that, when you criticize them, or your brother, or your sister, or it doesn't matter, your child, when you criticize someone, what is their knee-jerk reaction? They bring venom back at you. They want to defend themselves, and they want to point out flaws in you. Am I not right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. My initial reaction when somebody hurts my feeling, I feel like I want to do is give them the cold shoulder. I want to hurt them back, I know it's not right, but my reaction is I want to make them feel how they've made me feel. I'm just going to give them the cold shoulder. I'm not going to talk to them. That's how I want to react, but I know it's not the right way.
Just return, and I'm not saying this as the teacher, but anyway, we got to try to return kindness. If you ever find yourself in the 3 R's, some things will happen in your life. People will say things, people will do things, people will operate a certain way, or just people will be a certain way, and you'll find yourself in resistance. Resisting what they say, resisting them as a person, resisting the situation. If you find yourself in that place of resistance, beware. Red flags should go up. Resistance oftentimes leads to resentment. You resent that person. You resent what they're saying. You resent everything about them. You start to just resent the world in general sometimes. You get so negative. And resentment oftentimes will then lead to what Crystal just mentioned, which is revenge. And if you find yourself in that toxic state of the 3 R's, resistance, resentment, revenge, stop. Just stop. And Crystal says, well, what do I do about it? And that's the funny thing is, it's not what you do about it. It's knowing that you're in it. You see what I'm saying? It's knowing that you're there. And how do you know when you're there? You'll have negative feelings. You'll have unmotivated feelings. You'll have jealous feelings. You'll have, insecure feelings about anything. Could be about anything. And so if you
just recognizing it.
That's the trick. And that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I read that years ago like Crystal, and I just decided to listen to it on Audible again. And what did I find? I found, so much reaffirming, the things that I believe and the things that I've been taught. But I still make mistakes, and I still go down that road. And I did recently, even with someone. And I regret it. And I wish I could take it back. But at least I'm acknowledging it, and I am identifying it so that in the future I'll be able to further recognize it faster and stop. Yeah. But I wish in our college education, I wish in, and I didn't go to college. And sometimes people, they'll say, oh, you didn't go to college because, it wasn't that I didn't appreciate college or, that I don't like to learn. It was just that I just didn't like, having to do generals. I didn't want to be an architect, so don't make me learn math. Okay, I don't want to do this over here, so don't make me learn that, and I wanted to specialize in what I'm good at. And so I wish in the educational system they would focus more on personality types, behavioral types, how to win friends and influence people, how to communicate better with people. There's so much that we're missing in the educational system. And unfortunately, if you don't read books like that, How to Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People, the habits of successful people, if you don't pay attention and get familiar with all that stuff, you are missing out on the most important education of all. I don't care what your IQ is. I don't care what your test scores were. I don't care what your report card said. If you don't get that kind of education, all of that is for nothing. And that's what I found. Even without a college education, we have been very successful, and we've been so because we have focused on learning how to develop and nurture and sustain relationships. That's what we're all about, is making friends and making powerful partners that we can go out and bless the world with. So that's all I wanted to end with. And don't want to take any more time, but I hope it was helpful.
It was. Thank you. I want to get to a place where I can like somebody even if I know that they don't like me. I want to get to that place where it doesn't bother me and I can still see the good in that person.